Discover the incredible connection. How a cleaning lady's touching Korean words transformed a mistrustful suburban family. The bustling sounds of the community center faded into the background as May carefully maneuvered her cleaning cart. With each stroke of the mop, she carved out a space of peace in the chaos surrounding her. The cheerful laughter of families echoed through the hall, a stark contrast to her own lonelier reality. As a 38-year-old Korean immigrant, she spent her nights scrubbing floors and vacuuming corners, each sweep igniting her hopes for a better life for her two children. Yet, despite the warmth and community spirit of the center, May felt the barriers of class and acceptance looming like shadows that on one particular evening, as she dusted the shelves filled with arts and crafts supplies, May's ear caught snippets of a heated conversation. Concealed behind the closed doors of the conference room, the Smith family was wrestling with their burdens. "We can't keep going like this," Mrs. Smith exclaimed, her voice tinged with desperation. May paused, her heart tightening. She sensed their struggle echoing her own. Mr. Smith, with furrowed brows, stubbornly dismissed his wife's words, clinging to pride as their worries piled higher. Feeling a surge of empathy, May softly recited a cherished Korean proverb under her breath. "In the heart of hardship lies opportunity." She had whispered it countless times in moments of despair, and tonight, it felt like a lifeline. She continued to clean, her hands moving rhythmically while her heart ached for the family grappling with fear and shame. As May listened, the atmosphere shifted, tensions palpable. Arguments about trust and friendship flared, bringing out harsh judgments that struck deep. It was then that May felt a spark, a calling to bridge the gap of misunderstanding between her and the Smiths. Gathering her courage, she stepped towards the door, heart racing. "Excuse me," she said gently, her voice steady even as anxiety gripped her chest. "I've faced my own difficulties. It's hard to ask for help, but sometimes we need it." Mr. Smith paused, meeting her gaze, a flicker of realization washing over him. For a moment, pride faltered as vulnerability revealed a deeper connection. Their eyes locked, and May felt a bond begin to form, rooted in shared struggles rather than mere differences. Before the moment could blossom, an unexpected crisis rippled through the community. The beloved veteran, known and cherished by all, fell gravely ill. Chaos loomed large, fear darkening the once bright atmosphere of the community center. May watched as whispers of dread spread among the townspeople, a stark contrast to her earlier sense of hope. She could feel the weight of separateness pressing down, closing in. How could she help when the walls felt so thick? But just as anxiety threatened to overwhelm her, she remembered the spark she had ignited with the Smiths. Her heart raced, a new courage ignited within her. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue with a deep breath. May stepped forward, ready to advocate not just for the veteran, but for her own family too. Everyone needed each other now more than ever. Would their hearts open wide enough to welcome her in? The tension hung thick in the air, leaving behind an urgent question. Could the bonds built amidst hardship truly unite them, or would old fears unravel the fragile threads of empathy they had begun to weave? May's heart thudded loudly in her chest as she stood at the threshold, the dividing line between two worlds. The hot air around her felt electric, charged with unspoken fears and untapped connections. She took another breath, feeling the warmth of the mop handle against her palm, a slight reminder of the life she was building with each day's labor. "Can we help him?" May asked in a soft but firm tone, her eyes searching for acknowledgement. The faces of the Smith family turned towards her. Mrs. Smith was pale, her hands trembling slightly as Mr. Smith clenched his fists, the tension still thick in both their expressions. "We were not sure what to do," Mr. Smith finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. May's presence seemed to crack a door they had kept shut for too long. "I know a few people in the community who might organize help. Maybe a meal train?" May offered, her words spilling out rapidly. If they could just focus on action, Perhaps the shadows looming over the community could be pushed aside, even if only for a moment. The room was silent for a heartbeat, and she feared that her words had drifted away, lost in a whirlwind of emotions. But then the air shifted. Mrs. Smith's eyes began to glisten. "You're right. We need to act rather than just worry. We can't let fear paralyze us." May smiled as hope began to bloom. The tension slipped just a little, allowing space for resolution. "I'll help you spread the word. We can set up a schedule for the meals, and maybe a visit to the hospital too." As they began to brainstorm ideas, the soft echo of laughter from the children outside filtered into the room, a reminder of life's simple joys even amidst turmoil. What seemed like an insurmountable task became more tangible, a shared mission forged through empathy. But as the Smiths stepped into action, May felt a twinge of anxiety clawing at her. She had long waved away thoughts of her family's struggles, of the rent due and the dreams she held so tightly. Would she have the courage to ask the community for help just as they were? The uncertainty felt like heavy stones weighing down her resolve. With newfound motivation, May made her way back to her cart, her mind racing with possibilities. She began to gather supplies that they could use to help others. Donations of food and funds she hoped to rally through social media. But amidst the excitement, her thoughts spiraled. Would they accept her once they knew her truth? Would they see her worth beyond the role she played desperately cleaning their floors? The night stretched on as May worked fervently. In the distance, car horns blared, children chattered, and laughter filtered in from the community center as families began to truly connect. She felt that strange blend of hope and apprehension wrapping around her, making her pulse quicken with each passing moment. Then, the doors of the conference room swung open. A group of familiar faces stepped out, brightened by the shared purpose they just crafted. It was the Smiths, now warmly accompanied by other members of the community. "May, we want to include you in our plans. Will you join us?" As she stood before them, a rush of emotion surged through her, a mixture of fear and gratitude. This might be the moment she had been waiting for, where the walls began to crumble. "I'd like that more than you know," she replied, her voice trembling with sincerity. But just as the warmth of connection enveloped her, a sharp voice cut through. "Why would we listen to someone who cleans our mess?" All eyes turned as the familiar face of a doubtful neighbor loomed in the doorway. The words struck like a sudden flame, and May gasped, her heart catching in her throat. In a flash, the beautiful tide of hope felt shaky. Would she ever truly belong? As the air thickened with tension once more, May's mind raced. The next few moments could redefine everything. Could she rise to the moment, or would the past threaten to pull her back? The question lingered, heavy on her heart as they all waited for her response. May stood frozen, the weight of the moment crashing down around her. The blunt rejection from the neighbor felt like a splash of cold water in her face, dousing the flickering flames of hope that she had fought so hard to ignite. Heart racing, she searched the faces surrounding her. The Smiths looked conflicted, the others uncertain. What would they do next? "Why do you assume my worth is tied to my job?" May found her voice slipping out, more powerful than she expected. "I may clean floors, but I also clean house after tragedies. I wipe away tears and bring back laughter. I help families heal." The echo of her words hung in the air, and for a moment, she felt a stir of something courage, perhaps. The sharp neighbor's eyes narrowed, but May refused to back down. Silence enveloped them like a thick blanket, and she could see the hesitation creep into the faces of the Smith supporters. "You clean," the neighbor hissed, "but does that mean you understand what we go through?" May felt the sting of the challenge. Her thoughts raced. Did any of them understand truly? She had seen families tear apart over burdens too heavy to shoulder alone. She had spent her nights after long days, uploading stories of resilience on social media, her heart aching for connections that often danced just out of reach. In some ways, yes, May answered, her voice gaining strength. "Because I've taken care of my family alone. I've lost and fought for everything I love. I know what it means to struggle, and I know that the best way to heal is through community." Eyes flickered around the room, the lingering doubt began to crumble like ashen remains under a soft rain. Some shifted closer to her, and she felt the stirring of a shared understanding, even if it was just beginning. "Helping each other is our strength," Mr. Smith finally said, stepping forward. "We all face our battles, and May truly understands. whether she scrubs floors or not. What matters is the courage she brings. We are all lifting each other up. That's what we need right now. The tension seemed to dissolve as May felt a slight weight lift off her shoulders. Perhaps this was the turning point, a moment where clarity formed from chaos. The neighbor's expression flickered, doubt still apparent, but challenged. We can set aside our judgments for now, Mrs. Smith continued gently, and focus on what we can achieve together. May is willing to help us, and that is what matters most. A ripple of murmurs flowed through the room, thoughts mingling and transforming. May stood taller, surprised by her own resolve, tethered to purpose. One by one, faces turned towards her, some nodding in agreement, others offering smiles. This isn't just about meals or visits. May pressed on, her heart racing with fervor. This is about building a foundation where we can all feel seen, heard, and cared for. Together we can make this community better for everyone. Gradually, the atmosphere shifted, the warmth of shared vulnerability rising like a tide. The spark she had longed for was alive. It was fragile, but real. Encouraged, May stepped forward. Let us plan our first community meeting. Empower each other. If we take charge, no one should feel alone in their fight anymore. But just as relief washed over her, a voice piped up from the back. What if we fail? With disbelief, May turned to see a figure, a woman who had always seemed aloof. The truth in the question cut deep. What if we don't? May shot back, her confidence trembling ever so slightly. But we won't know unless we try. The silence that followed was charged with potential, and for a brief moment, all felt tethered by that one simple truth. But as May looked around, a sliver of doubt remained. What if her willingness was not enough? What if the shadows of judgment crept back, and they discovered the cracks in her own life? As the crowd slowly came to life, exchanging hopeful glances, May took a deep breath. The future stretched out before her, uncertain yet inviting. She could feel the walls around her heart beginning to soften. The bell rang in the distance. The sound, haunting yet beautiful, echoed in May's mind as she pondered what it truly meant to belong. She hesitated, then spoke. Together, let us find out what we're capable of. The words hung in the gathering twilight, reminding everyone there of the power that lay in their unity. Would they rise to the challenge? Would their connection turn into something undeniable? The uncertainty lingered, but within it, something else sparked a flicker of hope that might just guide them through. As the murmurs grew louder, May could feel the tension begin to shift. Faces once clouded with skepticism softened, and with each nod, the air thickened with something that felt like hope. She knew that this was just the beginning, but a spark had ignited a glimmer of possibility that could lead to something greater. We should schedule a time to gather, Mr. Smith proposed, his voice steady and encouraging. Let us make it a community potluck. Everyone loves food, right? It'll break the ice. Great idea. Someone chimed in. We can share recipes, stories, and maybe even brainstorm some projects. Laughter bubbled up through the crowd, breaking the last remnants of apprehension. It sounded liberating, a balm to May's earlier anxiety. While the idea of the potluck was thrilling, May's heart raced at the thought of the responsibility resting on her shoulders. This wasn't just a casual get-together. It was a chance to forge a new path for everyone involved. To ask people to trust her, to truly believe in the vision she had for their community. The whispers of doubt still lurked at the edges of her mind. Okay then, she said, her voice steadier now. Let us set a date and spread the word. I'll work on the details, and I'm counting on everyone here to invite your friends and family. Count me in. A man in the corner said, his face shining with enthusiasm. I'll bring my famous chili, and I'll bake my grandmother's secret apple pie. Another added, clapping her hands together. As people began discussing their contributions, the heaviness that May had felt earlier transformed into an exhilarating wave of excitement. She was amazed by the collaboration unfolding around her, a blend of laughter, shared memories, and genuine smiles. Suddenly, May's gaze landed on the neighbor who had been so critical. She was standing in the back, her arms crossed but a thoughtful expression on her face. It was a cautious recognition, perhaps even a hint of respect beginning to form. May's heart skipped a beat at the thought. It was a glimmer of trust for the first time. After another moment, she spoke again, this time with more resolve. We can also share our challenges. We all have burdens we carry, and talking about them will make us lighter. I know it's not easy, but if we want to thrive, we have to be real with one another. That's right. Someone echoed, their voice laced with encouragement. It's time we stop hiding our struggles. Let us put our worries on the table. With that, her lips curled into a smile, a warmth spreading through her. She had ignited something deeper than just a community meeting. People began to see one another as they truly were, not just neighbors, but partners in life. May realized then that the fear of judgment had lessened. The power of vulnerability was beginning to emerge, but the darker shades of doubt still swirled in her mind. Could she truly bring this community together? What if it wasn't enough? What if they faced rejection again? Or worse, if they turned against her? As she helped to finalize the plans, May took a moment aside, her breath shaky. Maybe this time would be different. But would it be enough to keep them united? A soft voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. Hey, it was the woman who had originally questioned May's worth. I was thinking, what if we also create a way for everyone to share their stories? May blinked, the suggestion hanging in the air. You mean like a community board or something? Yeah, a place where we can write down our experiences. It could be healing for all of us. Suddenly, that glimmer of hope felt brighter, stronger. Let us do it, May exclaimed, feeling a rush of warmth at the thought. Let us connect through our stories. It could change everything. As they set to work, excitement crackled around them. The seed of community that May had dreamt about was finally starting to blossom, and yet, a flicker of uncertainty gnawed at her. How would they respond when the real struggles emerged? As the sun dipped behind the horizon, May looked at the faces around her, people now armed with determination. She took a deep breath, feeling the tide of change swell beneath her. But as the gathering began to break up, a sinking feeling settled in. What if those stories revealed more about herself than she was ready to confront? With these thoughts trailing behind her, May left the room, a bundle of hope and anxiety intertwined. She had taken the first steps towards creating something beautiful, but the path ahead was still veiled in shadows. What would they uncover together? And more importantly, what truths awaited her among their stories? May woke up the next morning with thoughts racing in her mind. The night had been restless, filled with flashes of faces from the gathering, each representing a challenge, a story, and a connection waiting to be made. She couldn't shake the feeling of pressure, the weight of expectations resting heavily on her shoulders. Sure, she had ignited a spark of hope, but how would they maintain that momentum? As she made herself a cup of coffee, she glanced out the window. The sun was shining, pouring warmth over the streets. Perhaps it was a good sign. With a slight smile on her face, she tried to embrace the sunlight's energy. This day could be the turning point. She heard the buzz of her phone, a message from Mr. Smith. Hey May, excited for the potluck next week. I have some ideas for the community board. Let us meet later? She typed back quickly, her heart racing. Absolutely. I can't wait to hear. Let's South meet at the park. After a quick breakfast, she set out to gather supplies for the potluck while keeping her mind focused on what mattered most. Making this event feel like a true gathering of families, friends, and even those who had once been skeptical. Arriving at the local store, May noticed a few neighbors. They exchanged polite smiles and nods, but deeper connections still felt just out of reach. She felt the lingering boundaries of unspoken words and past disagreements shadowing them. With every interaction, the question pressed harder: would they really come together? Or would old wounds rise to the surface? At the park, the air was filled with laughter as families played on the swings, a distinct sound of joy that tugged at her heart. That's what she wanted, to create a space where their community could feel free to share laughter and heartache alike. When Mr. Smith arrived, his presence brought a wave of comfort. They discussed the community board enthusiastically, brainstorming ways to encourage everyone to contribute. What if we put up prompts? He suggested, tapping his pen against a notepad. Questions about their experiences, what they care about, or even what they hope for us as a community. Good idea. May nodded vigorously, excitement bubbling within her. Like, what is a challenge you faced that changed you? Or what does community mean to you? Suddenly, the sound of laughter caught her attention. A group of kids had gathered by the swings, darting back and forth, their joy infectious. Seeing them reminded May of her own childhood, of carefree days spent creating wild dreams alongside her friends. Perhaps if she encouraged vulnerability amongst the adults, their children would grow up in a community that truly valued connection and honesty As ideas flowed between them, May felt her own fears begin to dissolve. They were building a foundation not just for their community, but for her as well. Maybe it wasn't just about uniting them. It was about uniting herself with the group a step closer to overcoming her own reservations. When they wrapped up their meeting, a sense of determination filled the air, eclipsing lingering doubts. But a nagging question still tugged at her: could they truly embrace the messiness of their stories? Later that evening, as she prepared to settle in for the night, she took a deep breath, allowing herself a moment of vulnerability. What stories would she share if she stood in front of them? Would they see her not just as a leader, but as someone who, too, carried burdens? While she pondered, her phone chimed. It was another message, this time from the critical neighbor, the one who had lingered at the back of the crowd during their gathering. "Can we talk? I think I might have something valuable to add." May's heart pounded as she read the message. She felt a flicker of hope and trepidation intertwining. What did this mean? Could the conversation lead to healing, or would it rekindle old tensions? She took a deep breath, letting the possibilities wash over her. Maybe this was a chance to further break those walls down, to turn the critical gaze into one of understanding. But as she typed her reply, anticipation settled in her chest. Would this conversation bring them closer together, or drive them further apart? May couldn't shake the flutter in her stomach as she sent the reply. "Yes, let's meet tomorrow," she typed, feeling both excited and anxious. When she pressed send, she knew something significant was woven into this moment. Each ping of the phone seemed louder, echoing her thoughts while she prepared for bed that night. As morning dawned, the sky was a bright blue, a clear indication that summer was arriving. She dressed with intention, a vibrant scarf tightly wrapped around her neck. It felt like a small dose of armor, something to shield her from whatever lay ahead. At the cafe where they agreed to meet, May arrived early. The smell of fresh coffee and baked pastries wrapped around her like a warm hug. She chose a seat by the window, hoping the sunshine would calm her racing heart. When the bell chimed and the door swung open, in walked Mrs. Hahn, the neighbor May had been so apprehensive about. Her expression was serious, and May's heart raced again. Yesterday's playful thoughts of a hopeful gathering slipped away, replaced by the gravity of the moment. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Mrs. Hahn started, her voice steady but a touch strained. May gestured for her to sit, offering a smile that was half invitation, half reassurance. "I appreciate you reaching out," May said, her voice soft. "I really want to hear your thoughts." Mrs. Hahn took a deep breath, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of her coat. "I came to the gathering, but I didn't know how to connect. The history of our community has always felt tangled to me. I worry that the ideas you're sharing won't reach everyone. They feel one-sided, you know." May nodded, recognizing the truth in her words. This meeting was becoming more than just dialogue. It was about understanding where the hesitations lay and unraveling the knots that tethered their past. "I get it. I really do. It's not just about putting people in a room and hoping for magic. But what do you think we can do differently?" May asked, feeling a hopeful surge. Mrs. Hahn hesitated, the weight of her thoughts clearly bearing down on her. "Perhaps we start by sharing our own experiences. If we show vulnerability, others might feel safe to share theirs too." There was a flicker of recognition between them. It was a path forward. As May listened, a memory resurfaced. It was of her grandmother, who would often sit the kids down and tell stories about her struggles in a strange land. Those moments had forged connections far deeper than just words, and she knew Mrs. Hahn understood that too. "It could be a theme for the potluck," May suggested. "We could create a circle where everyone has a chance to share their own stories, with no judgment. Just conversation." Mrs. Hahn's eyes sparkled at the idea, the tension in her shoulders visibly lifting. "I would love that. It would help us understand one another beyond the everyday small talk. Real stories, real connections." The two spent the next hour discussing ideas. As they talked, the cafe filled with sounds of laughter and steam from the espresso machine, a background symphony to their discussion. But as they wrapped up, May felt a thorn of concern. Would others be open to this idea? Would they be willing to shed their defenses and be honest? What if some refused to share at all? As they stood to leave, Mrs. Hahn glanced at May, a new determination etched on her face. "This can be the start of something meaningful, May. I really believe that." Just as the door swung shut behind them, May's phone buzzed again. It was a family member with the unexpected news. May, Mom wants to visit this weekend. What do you think? A wave of anxiety washed over her as she remembered her mother's critical view of her community efforts. The thought of sharing her burgeoning ideas with her was daunting. What would happen when they met? Would her family's opinions pull her back down? Or was she finally ready to stand firm, embracing her place in both family and community? She took a deep breath, looking back at Mrs. Hahn, who was now stepping out into the sunlight with a sense of hope. Maybe this was more than just a conversation with a neighbor. It was a bridge to her own truth. But before she could reflect further, she felt her phone buzz again, and her heart raced as she read the message. It was from Mr. Smith. May, we need to talk. I've been thinking about our ideas, and something surprising came up. And just like that, the weight of the moment shifted. What revelation was coming to the surface, and how would it impact all they had worked for? May's heart pounded in her chest. What could this be about? She wondered, the tension coiling within her. Mr. Smith was always supportive of her ideas, but his urgency hinted at something more. She quickly typed a reply, sure. When can we meet? Her finger hovered over the send button, hesitation creeping in. What if his surprise was negative? What if it threatened everything she had worked for with Mrs. Hahn? With a deep breath, she pressed send, trying to silence the whirlwind of thoughts. The rest of the day whirled by. Thoughts of the potluck, her mother's upcoming visit, and Mr. Smith's message collided in her mind. She jotted down ideas for the gathering, glancing out the window as the world outside moved at its own pace. People laughed, couples strolled, and children played. May yearned for that ease, that connection, and yet, here she was, waiting for news that could change everything. That night crept in. A message popped up from Mr. Smith. Can we meet at the park tomorrow at 3 p.m.? Relief and worry danced in her chest. The park, a neutral ground. It felt like a space of possibilities, the trees bearing witness to unspoken dreams. That night, she barely slept. Rolling thoughts turned her pillow into a tempest of emotions. Memories of her grandmother's tales danced in her head, the warmth, the love, the lessons learned through sharing. If only she could summon that strength now. Maybe she could pull the threads of her life together. Morning arrived too soon. She dressed in her favorite sweater, one that felt like a hug, the fabric soothing against her skin. Heading to the park felt like walking into an uncertain future, but she pushed those feelings aside. The sun shone bright overhead, casting playful shadows on the path. Arriving, she spotted Mr. Smith sitting on a bench, his expression serious. As she approached, he stood up, his hands deep in his pockets. Hey, May, he said, his voice a mix of warmth and tension. It sent a shiver of apprehension down her spine. Thanks for meeting with me, she started, nervously tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. You said something surprising came up? Mr. Smith nodded, taking a seat and motioning for her to join him. I've been talking to some of the members about our plans for the potluck. And well, let us just say, there has been some resistance. Her heart sank. What kind of resistance? Some people worry that sharing stories might overshadow the food, or that they might feel pressured to open up. He paused for a moment, gauging her reaction. I also learned that there is a misunderstanding about the point of the gathering. May's thoughts raced. People misunderstand what we're trying to achieve. Isn't it clear? We want unity. I believe in what you're doing, May. But unity can be scary for many, Mr. Smith replied, his eyes sincere. What can we do to turn this around? As the breeze rustled the leaves around them, May felt suddenly overwhelmed. The weight of expectations pressed down like a storm cloud, but within that whirlwind, a thought emerged. What if we created a safe space, even before the potluck? A small gathering focused solely on sharing stories, just to ease everyone in? Mr. Smith's brow relaxed. That could work. If more people experienced the vulnerability first, they may feel comfortable enough to join the potluck without fear. But it has to be done right. May felt a spark of hope ignite. Let us put together a plan. Set an example. We can reach out to those hesitant and share that this is about connection, not expectation. With every exchange, the tension lifted a little, replaced by the thrill of possibility. But just as optimism bubbled within her, her phone buzzed again. It was an incoming call from her mother. As she hesitated to answer, fear creeping back in. Mr. Smith shot her an encouraging smile. You can navigate this, May. Just be honest. What awaited her on the other end of that call? Would her mother's views clash with her newfound determination? With resolve, she swiped to answer, bracing herself for what could be a pivotal moment in her journey. "Hello, Mom." Silence followed, thick as the air before a storm. What would her mother say? And would she finally understand? "May, is that you?" Her mother finally said, breaking the silence. The familiar accent felt both comforting and daunting. "Yes, Mom. I'm here," May replied, her voice trembling slightly. "What is going on? I just got your message. Why are you so far away?" Her mother's tone carried a hint of worry, tinged with displeasure. May took a breath, for this was familiar territory. "I've been working on the potluck for our community, and I think it's going to be something really special." "A potluck? Don't you think that's just a waste of time? All that effort for food and stories? You know how people are. They want to share personal things." A wave of frustration washed over May, accompanied by the gnawing fear of not living up to her mother's expectations. "But Mom, it's about bringing our community together. Sharing food is great, but sharing stories connects us on a deeper level. I want to create a space where people feel safe to express themselves." "Safe? You think everyone wants to air their feelings like that?" Her mother's voice was brisk now, creating a chill that pierced through May's resolve. "You're always so idealistic, May. You'll see. These things never work out how you imagine. Why can't you support me in this?" "It's like you don't even believe it could help," May replied, the words spilling out before she could catch them. The silence on the line felt suffocating. She could almost hear her mother's mind racing, processing this unexpected pushback. "What about your job?" Her mother finally said, seeking a different angle. "You can't just put everything else aside for something like this." May's heart ached. "I'm trying to be someone who makes a difference, Mom. I could keep my head down and just work, but that's not who I am. I want to build connections." Her mother let out a heavy sigh. "I don't want you to get hurt, May. People don't change that easily." "But maybe they can," May said, desperation creeping in. "If I can get people to understand, to talk and listen, maybe we could start to heal some divisions. I just need you to trust me." Trust is built on reality, not dreams. The conversation felt like a trap, every word striking a nerve. "You think I'm naive," May said softly, the weight of her mother's condemnation pulling at her. "But I've seen the good that can come from sharing. Remember Grandma's gatherings? They made people feel loved, like they belonged." Her mother paused, and for a brief moment, May felt a glimmer of hope. Would the memory sway her? Would it remind her of the warmth and unity that had once filled their lives? Then her mother replied, "I don't want you to end up hurt, May. Just be careful." With that, the call ended, leaving May feeling raw and exposed. Her defiance felt like a flame flickering against the icy winds of doubt. She stared at the phone, her spirit slowly deflating. Has anything really changed? Would her mother always see her dreams as a threat? Mr. Smith glanced at her from the bench, concern etched on his face. "How did it go?" "Not great," May admitted, a lump forming in her throat. "She thinks what I'm trying to do is a fantasy, that it can't work." "Don't let that stop you," he encouraged gently. "You've got the passion and the vision. That counts." But May felt torn. Could she truly inspire change when her own mother doubted her? As her heart wrestled with uncertainty, a voice whispered from deep within her, urging her to be brave. The potluck was looming, and now it felt like a battleground for her hopes. She took a breath, trying to find her footing. "Maybe I need to prove I'm serious," she said slowly, the determination creeping back in. If she could show people the beauty in connecting, perhaps she could change minds. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, May stared at the path ahead. The challenge was daunting, but she could feel a flicker of resolute fire ignite in her heart. "I need to prepare. I need to make this happen." But as she turned to Mr. Smith to discuss their next steps, her phone buzzed again, a message from a community member. She felt her stomach churn. What could this mean? With a mix of anticipation and dread, she opened it. "May, we need to talk about the potluck." It's urgent. The stakes had risen, and a wave of anxiety washed over her. What was coming her way? May's heart raced as the message flickered on her screen. It felt like a siren call, pulling her into a deeper uncertainty. What could be so urgent? She glanced at Mr. Smith, who had taken note of her sudden change in demeanor. His brow creased with concern. "Everything okay?" he asked gently, leaning forward. "Not sure," May said, her fingers hovering over the phone. "It's a message from Tia, one of the community members. It sounds serious." Maybe it's about the potluck logistics? Or perhaps someone has a story to share. Mr. Smith offered, his tone hopeful. Let us find out. May pressed her thumb to the screen and quickly typed back, asking for more details. The seconds felt like minutes as she watched the dots bounce, signaling Tia was typing. Finally, the response came through. Can we meet? There are some concerns about having it at the community center, Tia wrote. May's stomach dropped. Concerns? What kind of concerns? The community center had seemed like the perfect location, a spacious hall filled with potential for connection. I need to meet with her, she said decisively. Mr. Smith nodded, his expression supportive. I can go with you if you'd like. Thanks, but this feels personal. I need to understand what is happening. May took a deep breath, trying to quell the rising tide of anxiety. With a final glance at the sun setting behind the buildings, she turned toward the park's exit, determination replacing dread. When she arrived at the cafe where she was to meet Tia, the slight chill in the air was a stark contrast to the warmth of her expectations. Tia was already there, tapping nervously on the table. Her face mirrored May's worries, a frown deepening her features as they exchanged greetings. May, Tia began, her voice low. I'm glad you could come. I've been hearing mixed feelings about the potluck from some folks. May felt a knot tighten in her stomach. What do you mean? Some people are really enthusiastic, but there are others who don't think it's a good idea. They feel sharing stories could bring up painful memories, or they're just reluctant to open up. You know how tight-knit the community can be. Not everyone feels comfortable talking. May took a moment to process this. But I thought sharing could heal those wounds. It's what I was hoping for. I understand. But not everyone sees it that way, Tia replied softly. I wish it was different. People are scared of vulnerability. They don't know what to expect, and that fear is powerful. A wave of sympathy washed over May, but mixed with frustration. I can't let that stop us. We need to show everyone that it's worth it. We can create a safe space where everyone can feel supported. Tia nodded, but looked hesitant. Maybe we can find a way to ease them into it? Perhaps a smaller gathering first, just to show the benefits without the overwhelming baggage? May chewed on her lip, gazing past Tia into the busy cafe. Their shared hopes felt like fragile glass constructs, threatening to shatter under pressure. I'm not sure if that will convince them, she muttered, a sense of dread creeping back in. Perhaps we could invite a guest speaker? Someone who can set the tone? Tia suggested, her energy rekindling a bit. With every idea Tia tossed out, May felt her heart flutter between hope and despair. What if they could reach enough people this way? What if they could show them a glimpse of the connection she yearned for? She needed that light, that spark, to ignite their fears into courage. But deep down, a voice whispered doubts, that familiar refrain of skepticism her mother had voiced. Would a mere potluck really change anything? Or was it just a band-aid on a deeper wound? As they wrapped up their meeting, May was left with a heavy heart but a flicker of renewed purpose. Maybe this was just the beginning. Maybe if they built trust one small step at a time, they could create something powerful. But as she stepped out into the cool evening air, her phone buzzed once more. Another message. This one read, "We need to talk about your plans, May. It's important, and it can't wait." Her pulse quickened. What now? What awaited her this time? May sat on the park bench, her hands trembling slightly as she processed the latest wave of uncertainty. The sun dipped low, casting a warm glow across the sky, but the brilliance of the day did little to soothe her anxiety. The community potluck was just days away, yet she felt a storm brewing beneath the surface, a storm of doubts, fears, and voices that seemed to echo her mother's skepticism about her dreams. She felt alone again, despite the bustling world around her. A mix of hope and despair clung to her heart as she replayed Tia's words in her mind. The essence of connection was thick in the air, but how to achieve it eluded her. Just then, her phone buzzed again, this time with a reply from Tia, urging her to meet at the cafe again. Taking a deep breath, she made her way back to the cafe, the bubbling energy of the community now feeling distant. She pushed the door open, and the familiar scent of brewed coffee washed over her. Expecting Tia's anxious face, she found instead an unexpected gathering of community members, each face alight with concern, curiosity, and anticipation. May. Tia waved her over, ushering her to join the circle forming around the table. We wanted to discuss our options for the potluck. The warm laughter that had surrounded May in earlier meetings was replaced by a quiet tension. She recognized several faces: the Smiths, a few neighbors, and even the skeptical woman from before, whose expression now flickered with interest instead of doubt. Gathering her courage, May stepped forward. "I know this potluck has been a topic of discussion, and I appreciate all of you for being here. We need to find a way to come together not just for food, but to build bridges. I believe we can overcome our fears." But her voice echoed against a wall of hesitation. A neighbor spoke up. "I get that, May. But what if it doesn't work? What if things get worse?" May took a steadying breath, her heart pounding. What if they do? But what if they don't? What if we find healing instead? I've seen how sharing stories can bring people closer. This event isn't just about potluck dishes, it's about tasting each other's experiences, digging into the true flavors of who we are. Some nods peppered the circle, but lingering doubts simmered. "Maybe we could have an icebreaker to start," Mr. Smith suggested. "Something fun, like sharing a unique ingredient in our favorite recipes. It could pave the way to sharing deeper stories later." There were murmurs of agreement, and May felt a flicker of hope reignite in her. "Exactly. Little steps. Also, I think we should create a supportive environment where everyone knows their feelings are valid and welcome. No pressure, just open hearts." In that moment, she realized their hesitations were shrouded in past vulnerabilities, just like hers. A woman in the back, her voice timid, said, "I've got a story, but I've never shared it before. What if no one cares?" "Your story matters," May exclaimed, encouragement flooding her voice. "It's a piece of what makes you you. Sharing could inspire others to share theirs." Eyes widened. A wave of realization trickled through the room. "Perhaps we could create a community board," another neighbor suggested, "where everyone can write down their stories anonymously first to get comfortable." A collective yes murmured through the crowd, energy beginning to build anew. Just then, the skeptical neighbor who had previously acted disdainful stepped forward. "I must admit, I was wrong. Sharing doesn't mean revealing all your secrets. It means building trust." May's heart soared. The words echoed in the stillness of the room, a signal of hope igniting around her. The atmosphere began to transform, like the sunset spilling vibrant colors across a faded canvas. With every suggestion and shared thought, the weight of must-do expectations released its grip. Laughter broke through the tension, ideas bounced around the room, and May felt the walls start to crumble, just like she had hoped. As the meeting wrapped up, a sense of unity hung delicately in the air. They had woven threads of understanding into a tapestry ready for the potluck. May stepped out into the evening, exhilarated. But her joy hitched when her phone buzzed again. The same community member now pulling her back toward uncertainty. "We need to talk about your plans," the text read. "Not another crisis," she whispered to herself, heart racing. She took a minute, closed her eyes, breathed deep. "Whatever comes," she thought, feeling resolved. "I've made a difference already. I belong here." In a community built on trust, they could handle anything together. Letting the wave of support swell around her, she stepped forward. This chapter wasn't about fragmentation. It was about healing. She replied, "I'm ready to talk. Let us do this." With newfound determination and a heart full of faith, May stepped back into the light. But dear audience, this isn't just the end. This is a call to arms. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that will undoubtedly touch your heart. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to hear every word. Finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this incredible transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans know how vital it is to support the channel through these actions.